Again, my name is Annalise Swearinga. I'm one of the adjunct PIOs here at Tallahassee Police Department. Thank you for being here today and helping us keeping the community informed. This press conference was called to update our community partners and the citizens regarding the latest developments in our investigation regarding the murder of Dan Markel. Last week, Mr. Sigfredo Garcia was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. At that time, in order to protect the integrity of our ongoing investigation, the probable cause affidavit associated with Mr. Garcia's arrest warrant was sealed by Judge Solstrom. This morning, Judge Solstrom signed an order lifting that seal. At this time, I would like to ask Chief Michael DeLeo to step to the podium to discuss the facts of this case and answer questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you again for coming back and supporting our continued efforts to keep everyone informed on this case. I want to begin again by first extending our condolences to the Markel family. During the past almost 2 years, they've endured a tremendous amount of turmoil in their lives, and remind everyone that ultimately this case is about the murder of Professor Markel and the lasting effects that it has upon his family and the community. On July 18, 2014, at approximately 11 a.m., Professor Daniel Markel was murdered at his home, located at 2116 Trescott Drive. This case was assigned to the Tallahassee Police Department Violent Crimes Unit. After almost 2 years of investigative efforts, a warrant was obtained for the arrest of Sigfredo Garcia for Professor Markel's murder. Mr. Garcia was arrested on May 25, 2016 by members of the Hondell Beach Police Department in Broward County, Florida. At the time of the arrest, the details of the probable cause were sealed due to the ongoing criminal investigation. Today, the affidavit was unsealed, so we can provide additional information regarding this investigation. However, I want to remind everyone, this is still an ongoing investigation. We are currently following up on leads, which may limit some of my responses. At this time, I will do my best to answer some of your questions with the understanding that the Tallahassee Police Department, with its law enforcement partners, are still actively investigating the murder of Daniel Markel.
So is that to say there have been no additional arrests since last week?
There have not been any additional arrests.
Has the release of the probable cause complicated your investigation?
We would have preferred that it remain confidential a little bit longer, but the fact is it's been released and we'll continue to follow through with our investigation.
What information in the probable cause made you want to keep it sealed?
I think it's obvious that the longer things are confidential, it makes our job a little bit easier as opposed to trying to track people down and then knowing what we're looking at specifically.
Did you know it was going to be unsealed?
No, sir.
Why didn't you know?
You're asking the wrong person that question.
This document seems to implicate some of Mr. Markel's ex-wife and family members. Can you talk about that at all? Are they suspects in this case?
Again, we're following up every lead and every angle of the investigation. Obviously, our investigative efforts have led to Mr. Garcia at this point, and certainly by the release of the probable cause this morning, Mr. Rivera, and we are continuing to investigate their connection to any family members or anybody else who knew Professor Markel.
Regarding Mr. Rivera, if you could speak directly on him, sir, your affidavit does directly suggest that he was involved in the shooting and that he was with Mr. Garcia. Do you know where he is? Do you have any idea where his whereabouts?
I have a very good idea where he is. He's in federal custody on unrelated charges.
Oh, so okay, so he's not going anywhere.
No, sir.
Okay. Anything more about what is it? Other murder charges that are things unrelated to this case that he's being held?
No, it's completely unrelated charges. It has nothing to do with this case.
And we're trying to track down his former mugshot from previous stint in prison as a convicted felon. Can you provide us his middle initial or more information?
I don't have that offhand, but we can get that information for you.
Okay.
Can you characterize the investigation, the collaboration, I guess, between your office and the state attorney's office?
We've been working closely with them and our other law enforcement partners since early in the investigation. Our investigators meet regularly and converse regularly with the state attorney and their representatives. And we discuss different investigative strategies and the best way to pursue this case.
We have sources that are saying it was kind of a tense back and forth. Can you talk about that at all, or is that something you care to elaborate on?
Well, I think that anytime you're discussing investigative strategies, there's different ideas and different approaches, and this, like any other case, there's different opinions on how we should best proceed. I don't think that that's unique in this case, and I think that this is maybe unfortunately becoming a unnecessary distraction to the real issue, which is Professor Markel's homicide and the impact it's had on his family and the community.
Why haven't there been more arrests outside of Mr. Rivera?
Because we're still working on the case. We're not finished yet. We have to have probable cause and warrant signed to pursue the case, and we're still working on that.
Well, but would it be fair to call Mr. Rivera, based upon the affidavit, a suspect in the murder of Mr. Markel?
That would be very fair.
Okay.
You would characterize this as a murder for hire?
Excuse me?
Would you characterize this as a murder for hire?
I would say that there's certainly good information indications that, since there's no known relationship between Mr. Rivera or Mr. Garcia and Professor Markel, that obviously it was not a random act that they came up here for him.
Have you been able to establish any proof of payment or anything like that that would indicate they were paid for this?
That's still an ongoing part of the investigation.
So Mr. Rivera will not be arrested?
Well, he's currently in custody, but he will be charged.
Okay.
Let me clarify, it is our intent that he will be charged.
Okay.
Do you have a date of birth for Mr. Rivera?
We can get you all that information.
Do you know where the Adelsons are?
We're not on speaking terms.
Have you been able to establish any direct communication between Mr. Garcia, Mr. Rivera, and the Adelson family?
I think that certainly the probable cause affidavit certainly points out a lot of information and connections between them and their phone records, as far as certainly Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rivera. And those links will continue to come out further as the investigation proceeds and the prosecution does.
Can we consider them suspects?
Excuse me?
Could we consider Charles Adelson, Wendy Adelson suspects?
I don't think that we're to that point yet. And we're going to continue to investigate every lead that we have.
Was there kind of like an aha moment in this case, or was it kind of plodding along, picking up bits and pieces as you went? Or
this is really the result of the perseverance of investigator Craig Isom, Special Agent Pat Sanford from the FBI, and certainly a lot of other people that are here from the PD and other agencies, as far as putting this case together over the course of almost 2 years. This was not there was no anonymous tip or verified tip that just came in and said, oh, you need to go look for Mr. Garcia. This was them painstakingly and dedication, perseverance, putting this together piece by piece every day to put this all together.
In regard,
and we're not finished with it.
I'm sorry, cut you off, sir. In regards to the Adelsons, are you keeping tabs on their whereabouts, even though they aren't suspects?
I'm not going to go into those details.
Okay.
Have they been interviewed?
No, I'm not going into those details at this point. Like I said, there's still parts of the investigation that aren't over yet, and we'll have to remain, private as we continue and confidential.
How important was the man who set up the hotel room for the suspects here in Tallahassee?
Obviously, with technology, it's important, and it certainly helps do as far as locations and GPS, and technology is wonderful and a great investigative resource. But the fact is when you want to pursue a case, nothing beats a witness. And having somebody that can place the presence of Mr. Rivera and Mr. Garcia here was obviously key to the investigation.
Would that person be charged? It doesn't seem, based on my reading.
Based on our investigation, he has no link to the homicide.
And can you clarify, were the men here in Tallahassee in June, the month before the murder, as well as here in July?
Our information and investigation shows they were here both months.
Do we know the relationship between Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera? Were they brothers? Were they friends?
I don't know the depth of the relationship, but there's certainly acquaintances, if not friends.
Do we know if Charles Adelson had a relationship with the woman who was described as the mother of Sigfredo Garcia's children?
Based on the information, probable cause, that we have reason to believe that there is information that they have a personal relationship.
Have you been in contact with Catherine?
Our investigators are still following up on those leads.
What kind of relationship did they have?
It appears to be a very personal one.
Romantic?
Appears to be a very personal relationship.
Will the release of this PC speed up your investigation? How will it really impact what happens from here forth and in the speed at which it happens?
We still have to obviously be very careful. We're very cognizant of people's constitutional rights, so we have to make sure that everything we do is procedurally correct, which is one of the reasons we work so closely with the state attorney's office. We realize that our job doesn't end just when an arrest is made or a warrant is filed, that it's our responsibility to make sure that the case is also brought to a successful prosecution. So although it may change timelines or the way that we want to do things, the fact is we have to balance that out, making sure that we are very respectful of people's rights and that we don't jeopardize the prosecution of the case.
How critical is the surveillance video that you collected from different locations?
Well, that helps, obviously, again, put the pieces together, put their physical presence here, not just phones and GPS tracking devices, but actually put the vehicle here, the timeline that it helps establish, and then obviously putting them in that vehicle here when the vehicle had some very unique characteristics.
Is Ms. Magmanua a suspect?
And she's still someone that we're investigating as part of this case.
Mr. Lewis is the attorney representing Mr. Garcia, is contending that Mr. Garcia had no role in the crime, and that, in fact, that you have produced no physical evidence or no eyewitness accounts to actually show that he committed the murder. And that, in fact, that they plan to seek to try to get him released from jail next week.
And I would expect nothing else less from, I mean, that's Mr. Lewis's job. And I perfectly respect his position and what his job is as a defense attorney. I haven't met too many defense attorneys that said, yes, their client did it. So he is supposed to do his job. He's supposed to advocate for his client. And if we have done our job and we continue our work with the prosecution, then we're very confident in the case that we've put together. And as it progresses and more details will come out, I think the community will see the facts what they are.
Did any money exchange hands between the witnesses, the suspects, or any of the people involved?
Those are also a lot of the details that we're putting together as far as some of those facts.
Does Ms. Magmanua have a criminal record?
I don't know offhand, to be honest.
This case has been moving obviously very painstakingly slow, and all of a sudden it, sorry about that, it's been moving very fast, very quickly. Do you have a timetable for moving forward with it?
No, it's not a race. The idea is to make sure that we put together the best case possible as far as presenting charges and obviously the follow-through for the prosecution. So we have to be very careful, and it is, I wouldn't say it's painstakingly slow, it's painstakingly thorough and detailed as it should be, because it's our job also not just to find people who are responsible, to make sure that we clear people who aren't. And there's a balancing act there in our role, and it's important to make sure that we get it right the first time. So this has been a long, detailed investigation, and I think that when the facts come out, or I know that when the facts come out and people see the full scope of the investigative efforts, that this community will be proud of the work that was done.
Is it probable that there will be more arrests in this case?
I would think that is more probable than not there will be additional arrests. Yes.
How much did the divorce between Mr. Markel and his wife play into this? I've noticed that it's listed under motive for murder. Could you speak to that? I guess if we're going down that rabbit hole, is that an appropriate rabbit hole to go down?
No, I think obviously we felt it was, because we document in our probable cause affidavit for the arrest warrant that their relationship was a motivating factor in his murder.
Is there anybody else involved that's not listed on here? Are there colleagues, other spouses, other boyfriends, girlfriends?
What do you mean by other people involved?
I guess there are members of the Adelson family that are also involved that aren't named in this report.
I would say that we're still doing an active investigation, and we have interviewed many more people than are just listed there, and we'll continue to follow every lead and every angle as they come up that we're still working on.
Sorry. Is the investigation focused in South Florida, Tallahassee? Can you give me an idea of where we're going?
Both. Obviously, the crime occurred here, and there's certainly key factors and key things that happen here, as well as certainly events in South Florida that we're very interested in following up and getting all the details on.
Any other parts of the country?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
I'm curious, since you brought in the divorce, and you've mentioned it in the probable cause affidavit, have you looked at all at the fact that that Miss Adelson changed the demand for her money, and then they were able to sort of resolve the disposal of the estate? And the fact that, of course, she got the proceeds on behalf of the two. I mean, is that at play here in terms of not just the divorce itself, but the disposal of the estate?
We're looking at every different option and angle as far as motivation and the details as far as what led up to the murder.
Who interviewed Garcia 2 days before he was arrested?
Investigator Isom and Special Agent Sanford from the FBI.
I guess what led to him being arrested 2 days later and not at that time?
Well, at the original contact, we didn't have the arrest warrant prepared yet.
Can you clarify where Rivera currently is located?
I know he's in a federal correctional facility outside of Orlando. I don't know the name of it offhand.
You don't know what charge he's in on? Sorry,
I don't know the specific case. It is completely unrelated to this case, though.
Right, but that does bring to the other questions. And Mr. Garcia obviously had a lengthy criminal record. You all have characterized Mr. Rivera as being a felon in the probable cause affidavit. Obviously, he's in federal custody. So, the question I do ask is that there appeared to be nothing in Mr. Garcia's record that indicated that he had previously committed any murders. I mean, he obviously had a lot of different other crimes, but I mean, I'm just sort of curious as to, I mean, do you have reason to believe that perhaps he is a suspect in other violent incidents of this nature?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. I mean, obviously, we're focused on this investigation, and we haven't uncovered information as far as linking into other unsolved murders.
The car, it seemed like this Prius trailed Mr. Markel throughout his morning the day he died. Was it also was a Prius also at the daycare center of his son's?
Offhand, I'm not sure the exact route the Prius took and when it did the trailing. I think the details are outlined there pretty well as far as its contact and general location is related to Professor Markel on the date of the homicide.
When did you come in contact? When did the agency or investigator come into contact with that Prius car?
It took quite a while to track down.
And did you search the car? Or?
The car had, and a lot of these details will come out, but the car had changed hands by the time we located it.
So it was no longer a rental car by the time you came in?
I couldn't tell you if it's a rental car or not now, but it's not owned by the same company.
Can you just clarify, was Rivera arrested today or was he arrested previously?
No, Mr. Rivera has been in federal custody for quite some time.
There was about a 24 or 26 minute time period from when the Prius left, following Mr. Markel from Premier back to his house. Did he stop? Did it take that long? Was he sitting in the car? Or had he gone in and then come back out? Can you share any of the details there?
I don't have that minute by minute breakdown as his route and how long it took and how he caught red lights or anything else.
Is it your understanding that the Ashford Club resident, he said he noticed some men in a similar car some days before? Were they scouting the area? I guess, do you have any idea what they were doing?
It certainly gives the inference that they were out there ahead of time scouting the area. And certainly helps place them, the vehicle, in the same location.
Are there, I know you have you were law enforcement in South Florida for some time. Is there a history of a network of hitmen in South Florida?
Not one that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
Just do one or two more questions. And
Have you, obviously you said you're not speaking with the Adelson family. Have you updated the Markel family about the latest developments?
So we have conversations, and both Investigator Isom and our victim advocates stay in contact with the Markel family.
I mean, how much work went into this case? I mean, this is, we see it in length of time, but I mean, how much did you?
Honestly, as the chief of the department, as a peer, someone who's been in law enforcement for almost 22 years now, I can't tell you how incredibly proud I am of the detailed, painstaking work. When it all comes out and you see the lengths of the investigation, the trails that the investigators followed, not just our people, but the FBI, other agencies that helped us out, people that you said, hey, can you follow up on this? When you look at the tens of thousands, if hundreds of thousands of lines of data that people have gone through line by line to make these connections. When I said that the community should be proud and impressed, that's an understatement, because the work that's been done is amazing, impressive. I've been doing this, like I said, for almost 22 years, and the work that our folks have done over this length of time, where most human nature has gone, the trail's gone cold. Someday we're gonna have to wait for someone that's facing some serious charge to snitch or something like that. That didn't happen in this case. Our investigative team kept plugging away, kept chipping away every day. There has been volumes and volumes and volumes of work done.
Well,
and when it all comes out, you'll see the depth and the details of the investigation.
At one point in time, if I remember correctly, there was a reward related to this. And I'm curious, was the
reward has had nothing to do with this case.
So not even the person who came forward said they were an eyewitness who met with
Nope.
the two men?
No, sir.
Okay.
do we know who asked for the unsealing of the document?
I don't know.
Would you like to know?
That's a different story, a conversation for a different time. Again, this is ultimately about the murder of Professor Markel and the impact on his family. That's an ancillary issue that overall is relatively unimportant compared to the impact that this has had on our community and his family. Thank you all again for being here. I appreciate the time and your patience as we continue to work on this case.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief.